I don't normally do videos about things that annoy me, but something today really, 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 really annoyed me. So here we go. It's about economies and why free things are now paid for in cities, and why basically public services are being cut, why the local economies aren't doing so well. Yet we're hearing everywhere the UK economy is doing great and there are more jobs. And now let's start off with, and this is going to be the main part of the video because I can't be asked to go through every single online business, but the biggest one that is really, really killing off the UK economy, killing off small businesses, and creating a huge drive in unemployment is Amazon. Everybody knows Amazon, and I'm not talking about the river. So Amazon turned over £5.3 billion in 2015. So I believe that'll be 2014 to 2015 tax year. So record breaking apparently. Well, it's going to be because companies like Amazon are, I believe, based on not for profit. So that means, I will just double check that. Bear with me. Is Amazon not for profit? Okay, so Amazon bases itself on a not-for-profit sort of scheme. They make no profit. There's no, from a documentary I watched years ago, actually, I don't know how much has changed, but the guy owns a beaten up car. He isn't massively rich, doesn't drive to work in a Range Rover. He has a Toyota, an everyday person. And we're talking about the CEO of Amazon. Now, I don't quite believe that, but that's what's been put out. And if that is true, then Amazon being a not-for-profit business is absolutely bang on. Now, a lot of people believe not-for-profit is good, but they don't quite understand what not-for-profit is. And to put it quite simply, is good in some ways, it's bad in other ways. It's good for some people, it's bad for other people. For local economies, it's bad. Amazon being not-for-profit means they pay very little tax. It means their stock doesn't have to make a profit. It has to cover expenses for the company. So, say they buy in, we'll call it generic item. They buy a generic item for £15. You'd buy that generic item from a shop for, say, £25. That shop's paid £15 for it as well, right? But the shop has overheads, it has wages to pay, it has tax to pay, because the shop you're buying it from hasn't got all these fancy tax loopholes and all these fancy accountants that can make their money just disappear. So they also have business rates which pay for things like local services, and public spending, and whatever you want to call it, like free stuff, youth clubs, and that. It's all a big circle. So I'm drifting away from the point here. So Amazon buy this device, we'll call it generic device, as we said, for £15. And they sell it on for £16 because they only need to make £1. Sometimes it's less than that. Sometimes it's pence. And that's all they need to be, that's all that needs to be made on that item. They buy it in, £15, sell it for £16. But a shop, they would have to be selling huge amounts of these items to be able to make that profitable and to make that work. And it's impossible to compete. Now, if Amazon sell, we'll say 1,000 of these items, we'll say 10 to simplify it, actually, because I haven't had any coffee. So 10 items, that's £150, which they make £10 on. So £160 if they're selling at £16 an item. They make £10 on selling 10 of those units. Now they sell, sell 1,000 of them, that's £1,500, and so on. You see where this is going. And all that money is just being spent on advertising and driven back into the business, which makes the business work better, which is great for the business, but it's not great for economies, cities, businesses, small businesses. I own a small business myself, which is why I've been motivated to make this video. And we'll be getting to some key points now. So I've made some notes on my computer. So Amazon last year, as we went over this, turned over £5.3 billion in 2015. Now, they employ 7,000, well, these are not right up-to-date figures, but it's the only figures I could find online. Around 7,800 people are employed in the UK. Now, assuming all those people are full-time, which, where I read this, those are full-time people, we're not going to assume they're on a stupidly high wage. Some of them will be. Some of them will be, managers and stuff like that. However, most of them won't be. So I'm just going to average this out on £8 an hour, nice and simple wage, 7,800 people. So that would mean Amazon pays out £2.5 million in wages, which generates around about, got it written down here, £500,000 in taxes, which those people pay. So that's, £500,000 in taxes for the whole UK, spread across the UK. Not per city, not per town, not per county, just across the whole of the UK. £500,000 is given back in people's employees, and then people's wages. And then you've got, where have I written this down? It's on here somewhere. So yeah, then they paid £11.9 million in taxes. So that's basically, £12.4 million in taxes gained out of Amazon for a whole year. That's in 2015, the year 2015. Sounds like a huge amount. It's really not for the size of the company. You think how many people order off Amazon, how much their turnover is, £5.3 billion. That's huge. That's insane for a business in the UK. Absolutely insane. And they have paid out £12.4 million to us as a thank you. It kind of implies that they've come to our country, they've completely wrecked our economy, and they haven't even given us any lube. So let's do some more working out here. So if nobody shopped on Amazon for a year, they took all their money that they'd buy things on Amazon with and shopped locally, they wouldn't get as much for their money, but here's the important thing. You're not just, when you shop locally, you're not just paying for that product. You're paying for a lot more than that. So £5.3 billion divided by around about 80 cities. There's about 80 actual registered cities in the UK. So if we divide that along there, I don't know what that was all about, but if we divide that by 80, we get £60 million a year in revenue, turnover. That's not profit, that's not tax, but that's just the money that gets put back into the city's local economy by people shopping. So quite a bit of that's going to be taxable. And then you think, if a town or a city, should I say, all of a sudden gets that amount of money flowing through it, things have to grow to account for that. So more people get taken on. You get small businesses taking on more people. And then those people who get taken on, they get a pay packet. They could be on job seekers gaining 50 or £60 or £60 a week, right? They're unemployed, struggling to find a job, and then all of a sudden, because everybody stopped buying online and started shopping locally, jobs become available because they have to keep up with the demand. And then those people get employed. And then what happens with those people? Well, they've been living and they've been, they've learned to live on £50 or £60 a week. They've suddenly got £200-300 a week. That's more money that's going to be spent. So that again alone is going to drive up the demand and again create more jobs. And then you're back to the same situation again where demand has gone up, so more staff need to be employed. More money's going into the economy. And it's not just people's wages. These businesses are paying tax because they can't. Well, they're not being out. They're not tax avoiding. They're playing fair. They're paying their taxes. And then you got business rates, which is the big one. Business rates for the average shop is about. Well, for mine, my rateable value is about £1,200 a year. Doesn't sound like a huge amount, but in a small shop in a very small town, our rateable value is absolutely nothing compared to what's like in a city. So a shop in the city may be paying 15k a year. Now that is a lot per shop, per like smallish medium-sized shop. How can I say, like your average garage shop, that size shop. Might be more, might be less, probably a bit more, but then you got all the bigger shops that expand because they're doing well, and then you got all their rates because it's calculated by square, by floor size, so like square meters and stuff. So that's how they calculate it. Unless you're a pub, which is done on your profits, but we won't go into that. That's another technicality. So all this money is then being driven back into the economy. So your local city council can then suddenly afford to do things like open youth clubs, reinvest in public transport. But it doesn't stop there, because the government then has a huge cash flow of money, which then gets invested in things like the NHS. You don't get cuts in the NHS or the public transportation system or anything like that. Or other big things that people are worried about all the time, like HMRC have just had to make cutbacks right where we can't afford to, really. And people are going absolutely mental about this. They're going absolutely bonkers because, where are people going to, how are they going to get Amazon to pay their taxes? And, well, they can't, because people are buying on Amazon, which means the government haven't got no money because Amazon don't pay their taxes. They're taking money from businesses that need it and play fair, and they're giving their money to people who don't play fair, which starves the people who police the people who don't play fair, if that makes sense. So they're then starved of funds because, it's like, imagine like a pond of water that feeds a village or a well, and you got a person who's got a pipe coming out of that well that's sucking out more money than what's going into it. Or more water, sorry, than going into it. Everyone else is, all the businesses are going to starve, and the police department isn't going to be able to drink. They're not going to be able to go out and patrol and sort this out, are they? And that is what's happening. That's what's happening. But it's also causing loads of other issues within the government as well, with government funding. But the point is, all this can be resolved. Not quickly, but it can gradually be resolved. And the UK economy can stabilise, but it requires people spending more money on the same product. But not only are they buying the product, they're buying investments for their city, and their local place they live at. They're not paying for a CEO to buy a new jet or to buy a Range Rover for their kid or something. They're buying dance lessons for somebody, for their child, the business owner's child, or they're buying a week holiday or something. Just simple things that make difference in real people's lives. So have a think about it. It's incredibly important that people start shopping locally and start putting money back into the local economy, because things will change. And we know that because things have changed badly as people stop spending money locally. And that's why. And I would like to wrap this up by saying, if you do shop online and you do get pissed off with things closing, like your local youth centre and things like that, you only have yourself to blame.